We understand that. And over the years, I think the General Assembly has given us some laws that strengthen sentencing, that strengthen the procedural rules that we go by to make sure that we're protecting correctional officers, staff, inmates, and visitors. You know, there are really, in my mind, 3 goals of criminal prosecution that serve public safety. That is, the first being incapacitation. As I said earlier, there are people who do not need to walk among us free. They are dangerous. They are violent. They are sociopaths. They will hurt you. They will hurt your children. Rape, robbery, and murder are real things, and they occur here in our communities. And so the very first primary goal of criminal prosecution must be to incapacitate, to slow down, to stop, to put in a box those people who are harming other people. But it's not just as simple as incapacitating. We have to figure out what is motivating and causing the criminal behavior. While we have them in that box for a moment, and by the way, most of them get out of that box. They come back to live with us. So we've got to deal with that. But while we have them for a moment incapacitated, perhaps we can diagnose and identify and maybe treat the root cause of it. Is it anger that needs management? Is it medication that needs management? Is it substance abuse? Is it mental illness? What is it? Is it some educational problem? What is it that's motivating that crime? Sometimes we can find those answers and sometimes we cannot. Sometimes there is no good answer and no good excuse and no good explanation for vicious, violent crime. Senseless loss of life, victimization of children. Sometimes we never get to the answer. We never get the truth. And I'm in the truth business. So incapacitation serves a laudable and notable goal of criminal prosecution because the person that goes to the penitentiary today for rape is not raping you tomorrow. The person who is in custody for murder is not murdering someone out in the free world tomorrow. The guy who serves time in the county jail or the state penitentiary for aggravated burglary is not kicking in your door and stealing your flat screen television, your firearms, or your pills tomorrow. And hopefully as a result of that, there's some correction that's going on. There's some lesson to be learned. There's some modification of human behavior. I learned my lesson. I don't want to be in custody. Penitentiaries, by their very nature, are not pleasant places to be. And so I don't want to come back. The second goal of criminal prosecution really should be and is deterrence. The laws that Representative Shaw and his colleagues make in Nashville ought to mean something. That is, if we're going to say we are a nation and a state that's governed by laws, then those laws have to be applied uniformly. They have to be applied fairly, but they have to have some consequence to them. There must be a consequence for criminal behavior. We must do right, and we must be seen as doing right. There must be a message sent to those who commit crimes and those who might commit crimes, including our children, that there is a consequence for criminal behavior. Those laws ought to mean something, and they do. Because when we tell children, or young people, or old people, that if you do this, there is a consequence, we better back it up. I have an 11-year-old son, and I'm already struggling with making sure that I discipline him properly and that I'm consistent in that discipline. State law has to be just as consistent. There must be a message sent to people that if you do certain behavior that's illegal, there is a consequence to that. And a part of that deterrence becomes public education. Public education of young people to tell them that you can live a successful life without always being medicated, drunk, or high all the time. Now, I can't prosecute my way out of that societal problem, but there is a consequence for it. So we must think about ways that we can communicate with our young people about substance abuse, about living successful and productive lives without the need to feel that all the time. We must tell young people of the way to deal with conflict without violence. That is, the solution to every problem is not violent reaction. That's part of deterrence. And even in my child support division, we talk to young people about the legal and financial consequences of making a baby. There is a consequence there. And the law imposes it. And my job is to enforce it. So deterrence becomes real important because we want to make sure that we are fair, we give proper warning, and then we back up what we say. And then finally, the final goal of criminal prosecution that comes to my mind when I think about why it is that I do what I do, and how it is that we're preserving and protecting public safety as a result of it, is really something that I like to call personal justice for the victims. If you are a victim of crime, whatever it may be, you have the right to be treated with dignity and respect. You have the right to see that the system works for you too. You have a right to be notified, be advised, be protected, be comforted, and to come through the system in such a way that justice is achieved in whatever form it takes itself. Now, I'll be honest with you. It's very frustrating to me that most often I can't give a true measure of justice to victims for what they have lost. How do you restore the dignity of a woman who's been raped? No amount of jail time can give that back. How do you make someone whole who's lost a family member to violent murder? No sentence, no prosecution can really make that up to them. How do you restore the feeling of safety and security to someone whose house has been broken into? They'll never be the same. They'll never be the same. And those people, those victims, they come to us as law enforcement, as prosecutors, as judges, as lawmakers, and they scream their frustration at us, and they say, "Do something about it. Do something about it." And we are, and yet many times it's not sufficient. It doesn't make them whole. We render justice in the best way that we know how in our man-made system of laws and rules and sentences. But at least we want to make sure that we treat victims with respect and dignity. And so that's what we do in the world of criminal prosecution every day, is we pursue those goals.